Okay, so we're going to start with photosynthesis. So, photosynthesis is a metabolic process. So, that's a process that occurs in cells. So, specifically, photosynthesis only occurs in plant cells. And the reason why is because plant cells have a organelle called a chloroplast. And photosynthesis specifically occurs in the chloroplast of plant cells. So, once again, plants are known as autotrophs because they can make their own food, automatically make their own food from the availability of carbon dioxide, water, and sun energy from the environment. So, they don't rely on consuming other organisms to obtain energy. So, heterotrophs like ourselves, we rely on consuming other organisms in order to absorb energy. So, in order to obtain energy. So, in photosynthesis, this is a process that plants go through, and they are able to convert the factors in our environment, such as light energy, carbon dioxide, and water, into glucose. Glucose is a carbohydrate. Glucose serves as a source of energy for other organisms. So, when other organisms feed on plants, they're able to obtain energy. So once again, chloroplasts, these are green colored organelles, are found only in plant cells. So not in animal cells, but just in plant cells. And that's exactly where photosynthesis occurs. So within the chloroplast itself, there are pigments called chlorophyll, and chlorophyll are green. The presence of chlorophyll makes it possible to capture energy from sunlight. So keep in mind that chlorophyll found in chloroplast is the reason why chloroplast can capture energy from sunlight. So within the chloroplast, there are parts that are going to be important to know. So the stroma is similar to the cytoplasm of the cell. It's all the empty space. So inside the chloroplast, this big green organelle is a chloroplast. Inside the chloroplast, you have empty space. That's called our stroma. And then you have stacks of thylakoids here. So the green here is going to be your thylakoids. Within the membrane, which is the outer edge of the thylakoids, is known as the thylakoid membrane. And these two parts of the chloroplast are important to know because two of the reactions, the two reactions of photosynthesis occurs in the stroma and the thylakoid membranes. So the overall reaction of photosynthesis. So think about what plants need in order to grow. So first thing they need water. Water gets absorbed by the roots of plants. Light energy comes from direct exposure to sun and then carbon dioxide, which is found in the atmosphere. So, you probably know that the presence of trees helps reduce the amount of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere. Too much carbon dioxide in our atmosphere means there's too many greenhouse gases. Too many greenhouse gases leads to overall global warming. So, trees are good, photosynthesis is good. It helps reduce the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere by absorbing it into the plant itself. And then through this process of photosynthesis, so light energy is used to power this reaction to create glucose and oxygen. So glucose is a carbohydrate created, that's a sugar, and then oxygen is given off as a byproduct. But also, if you think about it, plants help create the oxygen necessary for us humans to breathe. All right, so if you look at this based off of the chemical formula, you can see that conservation of matter occurs, meaning that the number of carbon atoms on the reactant side is equal to the number of carbon atoms on the right side. So nothing is added or removed, simply it's rearranged. So our carbon dioxide and water are rearranged to create glucose and oxygen, and light energy helps this process. All right, so within photosynthesis itself, this is where it gets a little tricky. There are two separate reactions. So we're going to focus on the left side first. The left side are your light reactions. They're also known as light dependent reactions because they only occur in the presence of sunlight. So, light dependent reactions occur specifically on the thylakoid membranes of your chloroplast. So, only on the thylakoid membranes. What happens here? Light energy serves as the energy source, breaks apart your water molecule. So when the water molecule is broken apart, oxygen is created as a byproduct. So if you look at this part of the reaction, you have light used as a reactant, you have water used as a reactant. And what you're creating is oxygen as a product. So when you think of water and you think of oxygen, what does water have that oxygen doesn't? It has hydrogen. So the detailed picture of this, which you won't know for this class, is hydrogen is broken apart here. It travels down the thylakoid membranes. Eventually, you're forming a gradient where there's more hydrogen ions on this side of the membrane than that side. So the ability to pump the hydrogen ions across helps generate ATP. So, same with NADPH, it's an energy molecule that is created through the transfer of the hydrogen ions through the thylakoid membranes. So, this is like the very detailed version of the light reactions. But for this class, I'm only going to have you memorize the basics. So, light breaks apart the water molecule, creates oxygen. In that process, ATP and NADPH are energy molecules that are also generated. All right. So, after the light dependent reactions of photosynthesis, you have your Calvin cycle, which is going to be the light independent reactions, meaning that they do not need light energy in order to occur. So, the Calvin cycle appears in the empty space. So, this occurs in the empty space of the chloroplast. We take our NADPH and our ATP from the light reactions, and this helps convert carbon dioxide, a reactant, into glucose, which is a product. So carbon dioxide, CO2, creates glucose C6H12O6. So you're looking here, you're like, how do these match up? There's random hydrogens here. So similar to the light reactions, the Calvin cycle is way more complicated. There's plenty of compounds within here. But the big picture is that CO2 enters a Calvin cycle using the ATP and the NADPH created from the light reactions. This carbon dioxide is able to convert to different compounds and eventually enough to make glucose. So, once again, carbon dioxide goes in, glucose goes out, is the basic understanding of this.